Back in 2012, my house burned down, and about the same time I was just starting to understand LiveO2. And during this period I was under extreme stress with trying to manage a build and having a family, as well as trying to create a company. So while I went through this, I had developed LiveO2, and I was just starting to understand. So one of the things I realized is, we use a lot of technical language and graphs and stuff to try to explain. But back in 2014, I did this experiment, which I think very clearly illustrated what was going on physiologically, because I had a microscope and I could actually take blood samples and look at them. So what I'm going to do in this presentation is show you these blood samples and kind of show you what I saw when I saw the effects of LiveO2 for the first time, and then I'm going to connect that to the data so that I'm not just showing you charts and graphs. I'm going to try to narrate and explain what I saw in my own physiology, which caused me to be so excited about the power of oxygen and LiveO2. I'm going to help you try to understand how the energy that keeps us healthy is easy to access. It doesn't take any drugs. You can do it just by working out with extra oxygen, and preferably using adaptive contrast to really challenge your body. But it's really that simple. Seems odd, but this graph tells the whole story. This is an energy profile, the distance between the lines of a normal flu, where you get the flu and your energy drops to less than half and you feel terrible, and eventually over 18 to 21 days you come back to normal. All right, when you use LiveO2, same pattern in terms of getting sick, but immediately after you get off, your energy goes to about 50% more than normal, and over the next 3 or 4 days, as your immune system ramps up, your basic energy production goes to over twice normal. Now, when I first saw this, it's like, what, are you kidding? So when I used LiveO2 and I had the flu, it was interesting. When I stepped off this system, I felt almost fine. I mean, I knew I was still sick, but I was like, what in the world is going on here? So, and then what was weird is I recovered 4 times faster than everybody else in the family, because I didn't know at that time to insist that they train. But they were just like, couldn't believe just how fast Dad recovered. But this is my secret. And during this first experience, I went ahead and I recorded video of my blood so I could actually see, or believe I could see, what was happening that made my immune system work so well and made it so that I really wasn't sick. The first part of the story is told by these 2 white blood cells. The first video I took before I trained on LiveO2, the second I took after. So what I did with this, I sped the video up by a factor of about 8. But if you just watch how fast the one on the right moves compared to the one on the left, you'll see that the one on the right has more energy to work with. And I think that has a lot to do with how well my immune system worked. The second part of the story was told by this slide, which I took also before with LiveO2. And before I worked out, basically my blood cells like to clump together into a formation called rouleau, which means that they're in a low energy state and they don't have the electrostatic charge to repel each other very well. But second, when I looked at the intracellular, or the plasma space, you'll notice that the plasma is basically clean before I worked out. After the workout, it was a very different picture. My blood was reasonably well separated, but the big difference was that if you look between the cells, you'll see all of the debris. And that's when I began to believe that, when you circulate the blood and you push it through and you open up the capillaries and the tissues, anything that's trapped in the tissues is going to wash out. And that's when I began to realize that LiveO2 was very effective at helping you detoxify debris and other things that were trapped in the tissue. I have to say that when I saw my blood the first time, immediately after LiveO2, I was a little stunned. I was like, holy cow. But anyway, so I took another blood survey about 3 hours later, and I was equally stunned, because at this point my blood looked almost perfect. In this series you can see all of the red blood cells have a nice healthy glow. I was like, wow. So this is why I felt good. The next morning I could see why I felt better in my blood. First, I still had nice separation. My red blood cells all looked really healthy, And I could see that there were at least 4, at least in this example, white blood cells, in my blood. So it looked like I had more white blood cells even just overnight. So I was starting to see what I was looking at in the graphs, which is when you train with oxygen, if you got a infection, the immune system spins up. And I could see evidence of this in my own blood. But when I zoomed in on this pair of lymphocytes, I was like, wow, they're not as active as they were yesterday after I worked out. And when I checked in, I said, wow, I feel a little tired. So I got on LiveO2 and I worked out again. And I felt better. So that helped me have faith that the activity in the immune system was a result of the amount of oxygen that was dissolved in the fluid. Because if I thought about these white blood cells as little swimmers, if they were swimming in an oxygen-rich pool like a fish, they're going to be more effective and they're going to have more energy. So that's when I learned that when I'm sick, I want to have the highest possible oxygen level all the time. 7 days later, I took another sample. And when I did, I was stunned. What I saw was so many white blood cells, I couldn't believe it. I'm sorry about bouncing around, but as I traveled the slide, all I could see is more and more white blood cells all over the place. The data said, oh yeah, that'll be 17%, but what I saw in my own blood was more like, 50%. It was like amazing, the number of white blood cells that were there. And at that point, I could see where my extra energy was going. I had so much more immune system doing the job. No wonder it worked better. No wonder I could recover so much faster. After this week, the 47% more energy made a lot more sense. My energy had doubled because I had so much immune system working at such a high level that my body needed to make that much more energy. And I could feel it. It was like I wasn't sick. I recovered very quickly. The last episode of the flu, it took everybody in the family 3 weeks to recover what I did in 3 days. These graphs and this energy budget was probably not accurate. The results were, at least from what I was experiencing, the results were much more powerful than Manfred von Ardenne had documented in his book. I could see many times, what looked like many times more white blood cells. I could see very high activity, and I wasn't sick. It was amazing. I'm publishing this on the eve of what appears to be a national, if not worldwide, health crisis. From my point of view, at least for my family, I'm not afraid. I have the tools. And, we do have the ability to help you, and you have the ability to help yourself. So in my case, I don't feel like I need vitamin C. I don't feel like I need a lot of chemistry because I've got LiveO2. So if you have the opportunity and the resources, I urge you to get the best tool you can so you can shelter in place and take care of you and yourself and your family and your neighbors and anybody in your world who you care about. Thank you.